Perhaps my first question will be about a tour you did. It was in December with Elegance. No, the gun to the gun, not Elegance. It could. They are not the same band. Uh, so how was the tour finally?
Well, we just did a couple of dates with Gun in December, but it was good because they're a band that I remember from the 90s. I remember, I think probably around 93, I think they brought out an album called Swagger, when for me at least I first discovered them, and they'd done a cover of Word Up, Cameo's Word Up, and that became quite a big hit here in the UK.
Mhm.
So it was weird to play on the same bill as people that I'd looked up to. I was at school at the time and I was just learning guitar, so that was great to play with those guys. And then in one particular special venue, which was Barrowland in Glasgow, which I would imagine that every famous Scottish band as Gunnar has played there and done headline gigs, and we got to play there too, which was great and got a good response both when we played in Scotland and also with them in London.
So I suppose when you say that, it was finally a dream come true to play with us, to open for this band.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And our music is quite different to Guns, so we weren't quite sure how we were going to go down. They're a 90s-ish rock band sound, and they're a bit more upbeat than we are. But we were really pleased. We could tell within the first couple of songs at the first gig that the crowd was starting to get behind us. So that was really pleasing. Yeah, so not only great to play with idols, but great that their audience are becoming fans of us too.
The last show you did, it was 15 February. It was in Milton Keynes,
Mhm.
the Crawford Arms. How was it, this new show, this last show you did? Did you have the opportunity to play some new songs too?
We only played new songs that night. We used it as an opportunity to just practice some of the new songs that we haven't played as much, because we've got a big gig for us at least coming up in March. It's our first hometown gig of the year and our first headline gig of the
Mhm.
year. So the gig in February was really a warm up. We were playing with some friends of ours called Anchor Lane, again a Scottish band, and Milton Keynes is just 15 minutes down the road for us. So it was just to get back into the swing of things and get used to gigging again, because you get a bit out of practice when you haven't done anything for, or at least played live for 2 months.
And how was the reaction of the crowd on the new songs, with the new songs?
Really good. We were surprised, I think, on two counts. One, that I saw more Empire t-shirts at that gig in February than I was expecting to. So it's nice that people came out even when we were just doing another support gig, and we'd promoted it, but not heavily. So that was great, and it was. I think people are interested to hear what the new album has in store, and they're getting to know the singles. So we did play Relentless and we played Hit and Run, so there would be things that they would recognize. And it's really reassuring that when we say, oh, this is the new single, then you get a bit of a cheer from the crowd.
What do you like to give to the crowd when you are on stage? What is finally a good show for you?
Well, that's yeah. The main thing that we're trying to do is create an atmosphere and um, entice emotion from the crowd. That can often be a kind of melancholy emotion. I guess we create quite a weird vibe, because there's quite a lot of sometimes when there's stage banter, when there's chat between us and the audience, it can be quite sarcastic. And recently, what's happened is when we've been playing, things will happen, such as if we say, "Oh, this is our last song," and then the crowd boos. Well, we positively encourage that booing response. I don't know if the French audience would be familiar with the English idea of pantomime, but it's a bit in the English idea of pantomime is if you're a villain, as soon as you walk onto the stage in a theater, you get booed because everybody knows that you're the bad guy, but it's also done in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. So we like to play with the crowd in terms of fun and that kind of odd approach. We have some rules to our gigs that are joke rules, but it's no singing, no clapping, no looking like you're having a good time, just because often we have a fairly somber affair, but everybody knows it's tongue-in-cheek. So really what we're trying to do, to come back to what I said originally, is we want to entice emotion. There's kind of nothing that gets us going more than seeing the emotion in the faces of the crowd.
I see that finally you play a lot of gigs in England. Do you have finally the opportunity to play in other country, or did you stay for this moment in England?
Well, we would like the opportunity to play in other countries. We've only ever done that once. We played in Ibiza a few years ago, but we've never been to France or Germany or anywhere in Europe aside from that. So it would be great to do that. I can't say that there are any firm plans to do that at the moment. I'm sure you're aware of the situation so far as the UK and the very difficult situation that Brexit has left bands in. I would like to think it's inevitable that we will get to France and we will get to other parts of Europe as well. It would certainly be disappointing if we don't.
So you come back with a new album. You play some. You tell me you play some tracks, live tracks of this new album. You play also in some festival. One tracks, Waking Light. First time you play these tracks. You call this album Relentless. Is it the philosophy of the band, Relentless?
I think in one way it does. It certainly feels like it reflects how we've been over the last few years, even throughout the pandemic and periods of lockdown. We were fortunate enough to have recorded an acoustic album just before we went into lockdown. And that meant that we could release, we released 7 singles and 15 music videos during lockdown, as well as being able to do some gigs. And then towards the end of it, whilst in between all of that, we were writing the album Relentless. And towards the end of the pandemic, we were diving in and out of the studio to try and get as much of that done as possible. So yeah, we like to think we work relatively hard, and we haven't stopped working no matter what the world situation is. And I know a lot of bands have kind of fallen by the wayside or had problems or just struggled to keep going. So we're really pleased to still be around and still fighting hard, and got a new record deal and a new album. So onwards and upwards, really.
So yes, the first album was coming out. It was in 2019. It's called Self-Aware. How was the writing compared to this first one? Do you try to write differently? What does it change in the writing? Is something changing in the writing?
Yes, it has. A lot of Self-Aware was written with me and Did, our lead guitarists, and typically a lot of that was written with me with an acoustic guitar and Did with an electric guitar. As much as some of it is a relatively heavy hard rock album, that's the way it came about. Because so much of Relentless was written during lockdown, it would tend to be that it was only during the latter stages of that Did and I started really collaborating by sitting in the same room together. And I'd also discovered orchestral samples and other samples using the computer more and more to record. So some songs started on a keyboard rather than a guitar. Waking Light and Hit and Run are examples of where we started to use some synth back in, some pads and things like that. And then there are other songs like Cry Wolf and Your Whole Life Slows that actually have full orchestra parts in there. So we didn't set out to write anything in particular or write anything different, but we have found that that Relentless incorporates some novelties, some of the new sounds of EMPYRE, that being orchestration, and also the slightly more accessible and commercial sound of something like Waking Light and Hit and Run. They're a bit more poppy, as well as the familiarity of just some hard rock tracks like Relentless itself.
You tell me about the acoustic album. Yes, it's coming out 1 year, 2 years ago now. Do you think that this experience, it was the first time you did an acoustic album, have had an influence on the writing of this new album?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think one of the reasons we did that album is really because of the influence it had on Self-Aware. Because the other side, the acoustic album, is acoustic reworkings of just tracks from Self-Aware, most of which are on guitar, but also on piano. We always liked playing acoustic, and as I said earlier, a lot of those songs were started off, at least from my parts, were written on acoustic. So we felt that that album lent itself to having its own kind of MTV unplugged style interpretation of those songs. I don't think we would do the same for Relentless. There are some of the songs that we've already played in an acoustic way, but no, it was more the orchestration and samples and just a wider and broader exposure to music and ways of making music that really influenced Relentless.
So this time you choose to recording the album in the studio catering. It was with Neil Haynes, who is well known as a producer. First time, why do you choose to work with him? Is it important for you to work with him?
Well, Neil has been the sound engineer on all three of the albums. So Self-Aware, the acoustic album, which was primarily recorded in the same studio as Self-Aware, the other side, and Relentless. So we have pretty much recorded everything there. The only other bits that we recorded were actually recorded here in the room where I am at the moment. So little bits of it were recorded here. That goes for the other side, and Relentless. So Neil knows us, we're comfortable at that studio, but this time we couldn't get out of those recordings what we wanted in terms of the mix. So we ended up giving that to Chris Clancy to mix, to just bring a bit more life to them.
What was finally for you this time? What was the challenge in the recording of this album?
Well, I think there are a few challenges. One, we couldn't gig test a lot of these songs before we recorded them because the majority of them were written, or at least really formed, in lockdown. So we only got the opportunity to do a few rehearsals and really practice them remotely, get into rehearsal room and get them as good as we could get, and then go straight into the recording studio and record them. I can't think of one song that we played before we actually started laying down parts in the studio. So that was a challenge, not knowing whether we had the songs exactly where we wanted them. We knew we were happy with them where they were in terms of the demo and the rehearsal room, but playing a song live is a completely different thing. And then actually writing and working on parts between us during lockdown, that meant a lot of computer work in terms of sharing files and us all making sure that we could load into files or play along with someone else's demo, so that we had a way of actually collaborating and building the songs up from nothing. So there were a number of challenges, and it took a long time to record the album. I think pretty much it was in and out of the studio and rehearsals for 9 months.
9 months, yeah.
Yeah, in small doses. So that's not to say that it was over, but we recorded primarily in 3 block sections. Got 1 block of songs ready, went into the studio, took a break, next block of songs, took a break, next block of songs, and then into mixing, then remixed it, and then mixed it again.
So you you are a perfectionist.
Yeah, so yeah, all told, it took I think just over a year end to end from the first day in the studio to getting the final mixes through that we were happy with. Yeah, so it was quite long, but we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, it was so there are 10 songs on this album. The first one is Relentless, the title tracks of the album, and the last one, Your Whole Life Slows. Do you have writing many more songs for this album and do a selection after, or only 10 tracks?
There are only 10 tracks. We don't foresee that there are going to be any bonus tracks or anything like that. On one of the CDs that we're releasing, which is a limited edition CD, we are releasing some demos of the tracks as well as instrumental versions of them. We also have radio edits in our back pocket, so to speak, of all of the songs. So there are other little variations perhaps and other things we can release, but there won't be any more bonus tracks or any tracks that we didn't decide to put on the album that we release.
Is it easy to choose the single finally? There are 3 singles out, with one more with Waking Light Live, live version. Was it? Do you think a lot before to choose the songs that everybody will discover before the album, because the album will be out at the end of March, so in 1 month, 1/2 month. What is your feeling about the single when you choose the song?
It's always difficult, and especially for us, because as your listeners might appreciate, once they hear the album, it's quite broad. There's some hard rock, there's little bits of metal, there are some ballads on this album. Mm-hmm. And it's not only do most people find it hard to put us in a specific genre that's anything more specific than just rock. We don't know what the fans are going to like, nor a new audience are going to like. So we discussed releasing Relentless, Waking Light, Parasites, Cry Wolf, Hit and Run, and Forget Me. And it was also a passing discussion about Silence Screaming, and that's the first 7 tracks on the album. I mean, we struggled because we like all the tracks, and we think it's a really strong album. It takes a lot of thought, and at some points you just have to take the plunge and pick some. But we tried to go with the general feeling in the end was we'll go for something. Start off with Relentless, that is a hard rock track that people might expect from us. Then we tried something a little bit adventurous in Parasites, which is quite darkly angelic to start with and goes into something quite hard metal. And then after that, we introduce people to Hit and Run, and we will be introducing people to Waking Light, which is the little bit more of the commercial, lighter rock side of EMPYRE.
It was there is a song Parasites. Who are finally the parasite for you?
Well, that's a song about some relationships that went really bad and wrong, and just the destruction of it, and the change in feeling between 2 people or a few people kind of realizing each other's true character. So it's a song about relationships, albeit quite an unfriendly and aggressive song about relationships gone bad.
Yes, it was. I suppose for you write the lyrics, so it's very important to write lyrics in a band and so to say something in your lyrics. What is important for you to speak about in your lyrics, especially in this album?
Well, we write about anything. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it'll just be observational. So when it comes to, if I break down some of the songs, Relentless, as you alluded to earlier, is a little bit about the band forging a path ahead. It's a song about self-assurance and drive, and um, uh, it just encompassed how we feel. Waking Light is also to some extent a song about the band. It sounds perhaps like a song of revolution, like Muse might write. However, it's actually really about the struggles of trying to build a following for a band and to gain an audience. Parasites, as we discussed, is about relationships going bad, as is Cry Wolf for the most part. And Hit and Run is a song about me returning to a place that I lived in Denmark after a number of years and realizing that the picture I had in my head is and the things that were special to me in that place had all changed or gone, and that feeling of kind of melancholy, happy to be back, but the positive memories, but it's just not the same place anymore. So there, we don't have particular topics that we'll always choose. It's just whatever we feel at the time is appropriate, and also kind of whatever the feel of the music is, that often inspires what the lyrics turn out to be.
About the lyrics, is there on these 10 songs a text for you, a lyric, who is very important? Perhaps you give more, perhaps more emotional, more autobiographic that you put in some lyrics?
Well, yeah, Hit and Run would be the example of that. I mean, the lyric, there's nothing that means that much here anymore. That was part inspired by another lyric from another song by another artist. The song, I think, is America, which is nothing on the TV, nothing on the radio that means that much to me. And I liked that lyric, and when I was writing Hit and Run, I kind of just echoed that in there's nothing that means that much here anymore. And I picture myself standing in the middle of the town that I formerly lived in. And I think that is one of the songs that I try to sing with as much emotion as I possibly can, because every lyric in that song means so much to me.
You tell me about this acoustic album with so many video. I see them or hear the songs. Was it how was it to take finally some electric songs and to change these songs in acoustic version? Was it a challenge? Was it a lot of work to do the version acoustic, the acoustic version?
It was a lot of work, and not just from the guitar perspective, because our lead guitarist, he reworked Only Way Out and My Bad on piano. So then we would be reworking guitar parts to work with what Did had written on the piano. And also there were songs like Drive and Just a Ride, where we really changed a lot of the parts in it. So they're still the same song, but I mean the main riff in a song called Drive that appears in the electric version, I don't think it even appears at all in the acoustic version. So it was fun. It was fun to do. We always enjoyed MTV Unplugged, and I remember the days of watching Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots, sometimes reworking and sometimes playing pretty much like for like the electric versions. And we wanted to do our version of MTV Unplugged and just put a little twist on a few of the things we've done before. And I think we will always continue to play with our songs if we feel it's appropriate, be that an acoustic version or some form of instrumental or an orchestral version. We just like going back to some of the old material that we still have a fondness for and trying something new with it.
I see also that you did an acoustic show before Eagles, you special guest, Shinedown and Alter Bridge. It was at the Arena Birmingham. I suppose it was something huge show for you. How was it?
Well, I mean, they were great. They were great, great things to do. The way that that worked is it turned out we weren't actually on the large arena stage. We were within the concourse, within the confines of the arena, but it was at that time as an unsigned band, we were on an unsigned stage, and they would invite a band appropriate that were appropriate for the band that was headlining that night. So it was great to play before, again, before our idols. The Eagles gig, just and I did that. We did that as a duo acoustically, and we played Hotel California before the Eagles did. We took a bit of a risk, but it went down great with the crowd, even though that might have been a bit of a faux pas, as I believe they say in France. So and then before Alter Bridge, we were going to that show as well. So it was just great to a lot of our fans were at that show, so it was great to see them come to see us all wearing EMPYRE t-shirts. And then when we joined them in the auditorium, then everybody's wearing the Alter Bridge and Shinedown t-shirts. So yeah, they were really special evenings.
Finally, how could you describe your musical evolution since the beginning of the band? Not a long time ago, but since some years.
That's a difficult question to answer. I think that we've become more complex and we've investigated different areas of rock, and I only expect that our sort of genre pushing of rock is going to expand. So whether that is more into area of some progressive elements, or songs that are purely acoustic featuring on an electric album, I'm not quite sure what it is. We've really enjoyed incorporating things like samples and orchestral parts in with guitars. So I think you'll find that in the future, and what I've found is that there are just more and more variety on the albums that we produce, because we like everything from hard rock and a bit of metal to soft rock and pop, really.
Yes, I see that you do a cover of David Guetta, Titanium. How is it? How was his band decided to do this cover?
So that came from something that years ago, when Did and I used to play in a covers band, and we would play normally Guns N' Roses, Muse, and those sorts of artists, and a lot of the grunge stuff, because that's what we were into. But occasionally we like to do cover versions of David Guetta or Michael Jackson or Justin Timberlake or Britney Spears. So we would, because we thought, well, if we can turn it into something that's a bit more rock, that could be interesting. And I always find it fun when you hear a song and you go, I know this song, and it takes a little while to realize that actually it's a song that's well known, that you probably heard on the radio, but then it's just being done by somebody in a completely different style. So it just happened to work, and we like sometimes taking a song that's done by a female artist, so in this instance Sia, and then to have quite a low, practically baritone voice that I have. So it's taking a song, reworking it, and taking a new approach on it. We did the same thing with My Immortal by Evanescence. It's just an approach we like to take, and Titanium is a track that we're giving away at the moment for people that pre-order the album with our UK official sales partner. But I know again that when it comes to sales in France, that causes more problems down to Brexit and custom fees.
So to close the interview, if you meet somebody who don't know the band, who don't know the two albums, the acoustic album, what will you say to this guy?
I think I'd use somebody else's word. There was a gig a few years ago when we'd played and we were talking to some people outside, and someone said that we're the love child between Soundgarden and Pink Floyd. So that is pretty much how I would describe our music. If you like if you like the sound of that, then in theory, you'll like some EMPYRE.
Thank you very much, really, for the interview.
Thank you, Pascal.
And it was really a pleasure to discuss to you, and thank you for the album. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you very much.